All right, good afternoon. This is the December 16th meeting of the Design and Project Review Committee. We do have a quorum, so we will get started. Would somebody like to move to suspend the rules?
I'll make a motion that we move to suspend the rules, but so to allow member participation electronically or by telephone.
Second.
All right, Michael Griffiths, please call the roll.
Naiden.
Aye.
Gertis.
Aye.
Biggs.
Aye.
Cano.
Aye.
Eckersberg.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes of December 2nd?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All right, Michael, please call the roll.
Naiden.
Aye.
Gertis.
Aye.
Biggs.
Aye.
Cano.
Aye.
Eckersberg.
Aye.
Tristan. Hein.
Aye.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Okay. Motion passes.
Thanks. And then just a reminder, if you're not speaking, please mute yourself. I have the ability to mute you, but it's sort of a challenge sometimes to find out whose video is making the noise. First item, new business. 811 Emerson, major adjustment to a plan development. CA Focus, Evanston property applicant submits for a major adjustment to a plan development. 811 Emerson plan development approved by the City Council on July 11th, 2017, ordinance number 37017. The plan development was approved with 174 off-street parking spaces. The applicant seeks to reduce the required off-street parking from 174 to 170 due to necessary construction modifications, then make 50% of those parking spaces, 85 parking spaces available for public use in the C1 commercial district. So who is on from Focus?
Good afternoon. This is
Katrina. Oh, sorry, Vic. Go ahead.
You got it. It's Vic Howell with Focus. Tim Anderson is here as well from Focus. Katrina McGuire obviously is on. Don't know if anyone else is here. I know Lue Abuna with KLOA is also sitting in as our traffic engineer. We did the parking study for this as well. I don't know if I'm missing anyone.
All right, so why don't you walk through what you want to, I mean, it's pretty straightforward, but maybe explain what the conditions of the building have now become.
Yeah, absolutely. I can kind of walk through it quickly. You summarized it pretty well, but effectively the building was open in September of 2019. In September of 2020 is when we were stabilized and fully occupied. We noticed as a trend throughout the lease up and into stabilization that a large majority of the parking stalls were left unleased by the residents of the stalls that we had available. So we wanted to wait at least until stabilization and have a parking study done at that point. And at this point now with the building fully leased and occupied, we still only have 62 of the stalls leased of the total 170. So this is why at this point we're looking to make those stalls available for public use. We can kind of talk through the details if there's any questions, but that's generally it. The one piece for the reduction in stalls, just to give a little color to that, from the 174 approved originally to the 170 now, is there were some column issues structurally with the building as it was being constructed that we found, and that in order to fix it, to make the building safe, obviously, a lot of those columns needed to be reinforced either with concrete or steel and fireproofing, and that carried through the garage. So 4 of the parking stalls, unfortunately, were reduced to not be a compliant width anymore. So we still have some open space there, but we're not calling it a parking stall because it's not wide enough effectively. So that's what gets us to that total of 170.
All right, and then can you just clarify if if you reduce the parking spaces and you have tenants that need the parking, reduce the parking spaces required for the for your parking in the building, you would still use those extra parking spaces for tenants. You're not giving them to some other entity. You still control them, correct?
Correct. Yes, we would control and operate the use of it, and depending on our residential tenant demand, we're requesting a maximum of 85 stalls. But obviously, if our demand increases at all or significantly, we would then sort of tailor that number to that and lease as many stalls as residents would need at that point, and kind of reduce the number of public stalls at that point accordingly.
All right. Any staff questions or comments before we take public comment?
I actually do want to point out that on this particular project, we were doing the calculations. It was before the TOD parking study was completed. So that means that their required parking now is actually reduced from what is in the ordinance. I believe the ordinance was 358 required, but if it were to go through the same process today, that number would be 230 parking spaces. That's a significant reduction.
You're
Megan,
saying
can
they
you-
already have a reduced parking with the 170 on top of what was required. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that with the required parking spaces that they would have been required to have has been reduced due to the parking study, which was approved right after this particular project was approved. So technically they are required to have less parking spaces now than they were when the project was approved.
Megan, can you just repeat the numbers for that you said?
Yeah, the ordinance, I believe, stated you're required to have 358 parking spaces. But with the calculations now using our TOD parking requirement, it would be 230 parking spaces.
But just to be clear, the actual PD ordinance as approved us at 174 required parking.
Right.
Yeah.
So Vic, if I'm understanding this correctly, you'd still have available parking for residents over 20 spaces here, even if you're doing 85 for public use?
That's correct. Yeah, with the 85 for public use, we do have 4 stalls for retail use for the 7-Eleven, which is part of the ordinance as well as 2 car share stalls that are currently in the building but would be located in the alley. So that gets us to a remainder of 79 total residential stalls.
Okay. And you're saying
Dedicated for residential use.
And you're saying 62 of them are used, so you'll still have available parking.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. If anyone would like to speak to public comment, please indicate so in the chat box to me for this item, not for the second item. Or use the function to raise your hand in Zoom. Any other staff comments while I wait to see if there's any public comment?
Yeah, would the parking spaces be leased, long-term leases or daily things, or how would they be rented out?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So first of all, we would envision this to be similar to what E2 did back in 2017 down the street. So whereas they have options between daily, weekly, and monthly parking in their garage now, in a very similar way is how we would approach it. Generally speaking, that's the path. I mean, I think we would work to find out operationally how to do that specifically. The other avenue I know we would take, being familiar with the 1900 Sherman building, which is where is in need of leasing 50 stalls from a parking garage within 1,000 feet, and we're being across the alley is a good opportunity for both properties. So we've had discussions with them, but obviously nothing's solid. As well as our neighbors to the south at Sherman Garden. We know they have a waiting list often of residents that need parking, and since their parking lot is directly adjacent to this parking garage, could also be another great opportunity. So some opportunities there for monthly leases or long-term arrangements, perhaps with the Sherman Building for a longer term that we would kind of work through as we see the demand.
Johanna, I have a quick comment. It seems that we frequently hear about situations in which neighbors are in residential areas adjacent to multifamily housing are really concerned about the amount of parking available in the neighborhood. And it seems moving this forward would actually be an assist to that, in that it might alleviate some of the other parking stresses that are occurring in the neighborhood. And I also do think we have to really look long-term about making sure we do maintain adequate parking in any of our planned unit developments, but also looking at some of the other users, such as bicycles and mass transit, and making sure that we are incorporating those things in the future into our planned unit developments, which I think we've been trying to do that. And our planned unit development partners have generally been pretty good about looking at that the same way.
Thank you, Laura. Any other staff comments? I am not seeing any chat, so if there is no other staff comment, I would love a motion from somebody.
So I just have a quick question. Are we making a recommendation to the Plan Commission? Or is this just, does this
Yes.
stop here?
Yes, you are.
Okay.
Goes to Plan Commission, then it goes to Planning and Development Committee of the City Council.
Okay,
And
well,
then
I
City
will make a motion for a positive recommendation for 811 Emerson Street for the parking adjustment.
I'll second that.
Okay, Michael, please call the roll.
Nyden,
Aye.
Gertis, Biggs,
Aye.
Cano,
Aye.
Eckersberg,
Aye.
Tristan,
Aye.
Hike,
Aye.
and Jones.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Thank you, Focus. We'll see you at Plan Commission. Megan, what are we thinking for Plan Commission for this item? Is it February? One of the meetings in February?
So it'd either be the second meeting in January, because we have a lot that's going in January, or early February, depending on how those meetings in January go.
All right, we'll see you then. Happy New Year, happy holidays.
And
Thanks so
thank you.
much.
Thank you, likewise.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Bye.
All right, next up, Dempster Street, Dodge Avenue Pace Bus Stop, concept review. Pace applicant submits for concept review of bus stop improvements to the Dempster Dodge Pace Bus Stop, Pulse Dempster line, northeast and southwest corners of the intersection of Dempster Street and Dodge Avenue. Improvements include new heated shelter with customizable shelter panels, trash receptacle, bicycle racks, and landscaping if available, and vertical marker with real-time sign in the C1 commercial district. So who is on from Pace for this item?
Hi, Joanna. This is Stephen Andrews from Pace, and we also have Steve Weinstock, who's our transportation engineer, leading the design of the Pulse Dempster stations, as well as Steve Brown from HNTB, who is our PMO consultant on the Pulse program. So three Steves: Steve Andrews, Steve Weinstock, Steve Brown. So wanted to make it easy for you. So if it's okay, Joanna, to just go through some of the slides and kind of provide a brief overview of the Pulse Dempster Line project. Is that okay?
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay. So good afternoon, and thanks again for having us. My name is Steve Andrews. I'm Pace's Community Relations Representative to the City of Evanston. Again, we have Steve Weinstock, who's our Transportation Engineer, and Steve Brown with HNTB. And I'll provide a brief overview of the Pulse program and the Pulse Dempster Line, and try to focus on, how it the impact specific to Evanston, so we can focus on those. So for the next slide, if you don't mind. So if you're not familiar with the term Pulse, it's really the brand name for our rapid transit program. Pulse is different from our regular fixed route service in that it provides faster, more frequent limited stop type service along heavily traveled corridors throughout northeastern Illinois. So PACE's goal longer term is to develop a regional network of pulse lines that again provides that high frequency service, all day, convenient span, convenient frequency. The Pulse Dempster line is actually our second line that's in development. The first line was the Pulse Milwaukee line, which we implemented in 2019, which actually intersects the Pulse Dempster line at Milwaukee and Dempster. The Milwaukee line operates between Jefferson Park Transit Center in Chicago and Gulf Mill Mall in Niles. And again, has the same characteristics of faster, frequent, more limited stop type service with a special Pulse branding. On the slide right now, you can see the alignment for the proposed Pulse Dempster line service. So this line would operate between downtown Evanston, Davis CTA station, along Dempster, having Pulse stops at the Davis station as well as at Dodge and Dempster in Evanston. The Pulse line would then progress along Dempster all the way to downtown Des Plaines, where then it would head south to O'Hare, where it would serve the new multimodal facility at O'Hare. So the Dempster line will have the 2 terminals at Davis and O'Hare, as well as 15 intermediate station pairs, again with the stations in Evanston located at Dodge and Dempster, and then serving the existing terminal at Davis. So on the next slide, I'll provide just a general schedule updates on where we are with the project. Right now we are in design. So we're actually approaching 100% design very soon on the Pulse Dempster line stations, working closely with property owners along the corridors, as well as our partner municipalities to finalize those design plans in hopes of moving into the construction in 2021 and being in service in 2022. So again, just to highlight the benefits of the Pulse program, general goals: provide fast, frequent, limited stop type service along heavily traveled arterials, provide enhanced station amenities at these stops. So we're not talking about just regular bus stops with a pole and a sign in the ground. We're talking about enhanced stations with improved amenities that you might not see at regular bus stops. Again, maintaining that consistent Pulse brand. So we have branded buses and branded stations, really identifying these lines as Pulse lines, so that anywhere someone is within northeastern Illinois, if they see a Pulse station or a Pulse bus, they know what that means. And then taking advantage of other opportunities like transit signal priority, which I'll talk about in a second. So the Pulse lines, as well as some of our other corridors in the region, are able to take advantage of transit signal priority. And just to give a very high level, oversimplified explanation, is it essentially allows our buses to communicate a request to the traffic signals to either extend a green light or shorten a red light to allow that bus to stay on schedule. So we know reliability is incredibly important to our riders. They need to know that the bus is going to be there when it says it's going to be there. And this is one tool that we're able to use to help support that. So it doesn't interfere with emergency response vehicles. It doesn't, if there's an impact to traffic flows, the request isn't granted. So it is conditional. It's a request that we send to either extend or shorten the light to keep the bus on time. It doesn't mean that it's going to be granted, but it's a request that allows us to send automatically from the bus to the signal. So that's one tool that we're going to be able to use, that we're able to use on Milwaukee as well as on Dempster, and we're working with IDOT on permitting for TSP along the Dempster corridor. So this is probably the slide I want to spend the most time on, which really I think provides a very good picture of what a typical station is. This is a standard full-size station along the Pulse Milwaukee line at northbound Maine. And it really kind of highlights all the different station features that are incorporated into a standard station. So kind of starting from the bottom of the screen, we do put a reinforced concrete bus pad in the roadway. These stations are served by transit vehicles most of the day, every day. So we want to ensure that there is reinforced concrete in the roadway to support those vehicles so we don't see the roadway deteriorate from the weight of those vehicles. We also install a bus curb. So this allows a separation between the bus and the platform. So as the buses approach the station and pull in, there isn't contact between the bus wheels and the concrete platform. There is a raised platform with heated pavement, pavement snowmelt system actually incorporated into that platform. Pavement snowmelt system helps with our winter snowfall to keep the platform clear of ice and snow and ice. The platform is raised. It's obviously higher than your typical curb height. That allows us to provide level boarding with the bus. So our passengers, when they're boarding, it's level. The platform height is level with the bus height. It makes it easier on our passengers to board in a light. They don't have to step up or step down to get on and off the bus. It speeds it up. It's kind of as similar to how you step on and off a platform on the L onto the train. But it allows our passengers to really board in the light quicker. And then also, reduces dwell times at the station. So, another tool to help speed up the service by allowing our passengers to board in the light more quickly. Next, we do incorporate customizable bicycle racks at each station when space allows. So not every station has space for a bike rack, but our standard full-size stations do. So we want to encourage that, multimodal approach to transit. And we know people do use bicycles to get to Pace buses, and our buses do have bike racks equipped on the fronts of the buses as well. So including that bike rack when we can is important. Also including trash receptacles. We want to make sure that we're keeping the stations clean and going out and maintaining those receptacles. On the far end of the station platform, you'll see the vertical marker. This provides really an identifier for the station. So anyone who in the region who sees that pulse marker knows that this is a pulse station. It's really kind of the calling card. And housed within that marker is actually the real-time sign monitor. So you can't tell from this picture, but that black rectangular space in the marker is actually the real-time sign. So that lists out the routes as well as the minutes to their arrival at that station. So passengers waiting there can look at that sign and know exactly how long it's going to take for their bus to get there. Also in that marker are the maps, the regional maps, both local and regionally. So. And then lastly, right in the center, we have our shelter. So this is a shelter with overhead heating as well as a bench. And then you'll notice on the back panel of that shelter is a customizable shelter panel. So we work with the local communities to try to incorporate what we call local community expression into the designs of the stations. And I'll kind of transition into more community expression examples in the next slide. So again, we have a Pulse brand, and really one of our priorities and goals is to have a consistent Pulse brand regionally. Again, so that as we develop these networks throughout the region, the Pulse brand is recognizable. And anywhere someone is in the region, they see a Pulse station, they know it's a Pulse station, and they recognize that brand. But we also understand that we're installing Pulse stations in communities throughout northeastern Illinois who have different preferences when it comes to their streetscapes and design. So we wanted to certainly coordinate and find ways that we could work with communities to incorporate local community designs and preferences into some of these station features. So probably the most predominant is the back panel of the shelter where we can apply graphics to the back panels. You'll see this is an example of the standard sized shelter. It has 4 separated back panels with 2.5-inch mullions in between each panel. And this is obviously Morton Grove's community expression that they've submitted for the stations in Dempster line stations in Morton Grove. So this is to provide you kind of a visual good example of what some communities have done. You saw in the previous slides that the Village of Niles did something similar with the village logo and tagline. And certainly are working with the city of Evanston to provide this opportunity and get feedback on what the city might want to see on the back panels of these shelters. On the next slide, you'll see an example applied to what's called an ultra compact station shelter. So we do have examples along the Dempster line where, due to space constraints, we've designed a station with a smaller footprint, and we call it an ultra compact station. And this would use a smaller shelter with 3 back panels as opposed to the 4. And this design does apply to one of these stations in Evanston, which I'll talk about in a moment. But wanted to present this example as well to give you an idea of what that might look like on a smaller ultra compact model. And then, in addition to the back panels of the shelters, we also work with the city to if there's certain bike racks that are the city prefers for their streetscapes, or certain trash receptacles, we've certainly swapped those out in the past with some communities who have preferences for those items to match their streetscape plans. So that's another opportunity where we want the city to have the opportunity to provide community expression if they choose. So for the next couple of slides, I'll just talk about the locations specific to Evanston. The first one, again, these are both, I guess I'll start with just saying that the Davis station, we're not proposing any improvements. It's an existing facility and served by a number of different routes that terminate there. So we're not proposing to construct a pull station at the Davis terminal. We would serve that facility as is. So, but the next station to the west is at Dodge and Dempster, and we would have stations at the northeast and southwest corners. So this one pictured here is at the southwest corner, adjacent to Evanston Plaza. This would be a standard full-size station, which would incorporate all of those station features that you saw in the example on the previous slide. So the station fits fully within the right-of-way, and I should note that we've certainly been working with IDOT on design review and submitting plans to them for review and getting feedback from IDOT as we've gone through this process. So this one's pretty straightforward. It's a standard full-size station adjacent to Evanston Plaza, and we have been in touch with the property owner there to get feedback on the design of that station as well. So the next location is at the northeast corner. This is adjacent to Burger King. And this would be actually an ultra compact station. So this would be an example where we have a smaller footprint, and we do not have a bicycle rack due to space constraints. We use the smaller 3-panel shelter, but it would be right there, sort of adjacent to the Burger King drive-through, and we have been coordinating with the owner of that Burger King on the design of these stations, and have made adjustments to the plans based on their feedback. So I will note that you may or may not notice that the vertical marker is actually on the sort of the opposite side of where we would typically place it, and that was due to sightline review in response to IDOT. So making sure that we're maintaining those sightlines but placing it on the opposite side of the station works in this case. So also included in your packet are the shelter and the pylon elevations. I wasn't planning on going over those in detail. They're more there for informational purposes in case the committee has any questions specific to those. But I guess, to summarize, we're really excited about the project. It'll bring a number of new transit amenities to the corridor and hopefully help increase ridership and provide a better experience for our riders. So I appreciate your time today, and between me and the other Steves, we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great. Jessica, before we ask any questions, did you want to provide any comments?
Sure. I would just say that PACE has been working with the city of Evanston on this project for several years. I would also like to note that as long as I have been here, I have heard from residents and from the aldermen that they would like to see bus shelters at this location. And so I have generally heard that there's a lot of community support and long overdue waiting for these bus shelters.
All right, any staff questions?
Yeah, where's the pedestrian path and the bike paths around these shelters? What happens to that space?
Sure. So there isn't a new bike path incorporated into the design of the stations, but the pedestrian path, essentially the platform becomes the pedestrian path. It's sort of a walk through this. The sidewalk can be. You can imagine the sidewalk being continuous through the platform. There are some cases at other stations where sidewalks might route, around the backside of the station when space allows. But in these two examples, the sidewalk network sort of continues through the platform.
And Steve, can you confirm that ADA sidewalk clearances are maintained?
Yes, absolutely. So yes, they are maintained, and the design of these stations and the placement of all the amenities, that's certainly taken into account to make sure that we have, the appropriate distances in place and everything like that. So yes, absolutely.
Do you know what the clearance is there? I mean, is it 36 inches tight, or do you have more than?
Steve Weinstock, what is the clearance for the between the curb and the amenities?
We're using 48 inches, 4 feet.
Okay, thank you.
And if I could, this is the other Steve Brown, if I could jump in, the only place where it is 48 inches is in front of that vertical marker. Everywhere else, it would be a wider clearance than that. That's kind of the narrowest point.
Steve, have you guys checked with the shopping center there to make sure that 48 inches is enough clearance for their snow removal or gardening equipment to go down there? I know you have heated section there, but if they, have to traverse past it.
Yes, we have. So we've met with Frank over at the center there and provided the plans and provided and received his feedback. And yes, that wasn't a concern of his during our meetings.
Okay. Do you propose any landscaping like the one in Niles there for the southeast corner?
So at these particular locations, we do, there is existing landscaping behind or at the Burger King, between the drive-through and the station platform. So we would be intending to restore that and make sure that there's the property's landscaping is put back in place appropriately. So there would be landscaping, behind that particular station, as well as, we wouldn't add new landscaping at the other station, but I believe there is existing landscaping behind it.
All right, thank you.
Who is responsible for collecting trash and dealing with things like vandalism and other maintenance issues?
PACE or a PACE contractor. So we have a team of maintenance personnel that go out and maintain our shelters and our stations, empty trash, clean shelters. So that goes on an ongoing basis. In some cases, we might have contract that out to a third party to do on our behalf. But regardless, it would be a PACE or a PACE contractor doing it. if there's opportunities, for example, if in some cases in some municipalities, there's municipal staff already going out to these areas and maintaining something or doing trash removal nearby. And in those cases, we would coordinate to determine what's the most sensible approach. So we're certainly open if that's the case here. We'd be open to talking about how that maintenance could occur, but it's certainly not on the city to maintain. PACE has a maintenance program, and we're committed to maintaining the stations and making sure trash is collected and the stations are clean.
In terms of longer term maintenance, things like pavement markings that you guys put in specially, we would expect PACE to maintain all of that over the years.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, that is more of a statement than a question. It's just how it would be. And then I assume because you've been in such close contact with the Burger King and Valley, but if you're on their property, then you'll be responsible with dealing with getting an easement from them to do the construction.
Sure, and I could just the Valley property, we are within the IDOT fully within the right of way, but our coordination with them was still important. If we're constructing adjacent to them, we want to make sure that they know what we're doing and don't have any major concerns. The Burger King, we do require a pretty small easement from them, and that coordination has been ongoing. They've been pretty generally supportive, and again, have provided us comments on the design that we've been able to accommodate. So it's been a good ongoing coordination with them. But yes, that acquiring that easement is PACE's responsibility, and we are pursuing it.
And
Any
then
other staff
I would just
questions?
say, I have one more question, just finally, or a statement, question/statement. So one of our biggest concerns with putting stuff in the right of way is snow plowing efforts, and the snow plows can be pretty brutal on both the pavement and on the curbs and stuff. It seems like that you're designing with that in mind, but that is just a concern that it's not like our drivers are going to hit your bus shelter on purpose, but just in terms of the pavement marking and the curbs, there may very well be issues. And then would it be if the snow throws a windrow up on the sidewalk there, is that going to be a major concern for you? Is your equipment able to withstand that type of thing?
So with our ongoing maintenance, especially throughout the winter, we make sure that the platforms are clear. The pavement snowmelt system will definitely help with that. It's not going to necessarily melt like a major storm in a rapid fashion, but so if mountains were piled up onto the platform, for example, in those cases we would likely need to have staff go out and clear manually, which they would be going out and maintaining regardless of whether the snowmelt system is active or not. So it's something that we would probably recognize and be able to clear as a part of our ongoing maintenance program.
Stephen, to go along with that question, have you had any issues with that curb guard? Plows pretty much ripping off that curb guard when making contact?
Steve Weinstock, have we had any issues of that occurring on Milwaukee Avenue?
So that curb is it's tapered, as the truck or the traffic approaches it. It tapers down to about an inch, maybe a little less, which helps with that. But we have had a couple of instances where we've had some damage, and we do stock this material. It goes on in about 4 to 6 foot sections, so that it's more easily replaceable.
And typically at failure, does it break away and fall, or there been any instances where it's just due to a driving lane?
No, it it gouges and just kind of tears. It doesn't really come off. These are bolted into the curb with stainless steel, pretty large diameter bolts.
Thank you. And can you speak a little bit about heating system for the side?
I'm losing you here.
Edgar, you're breaking up there.
I am?
Edgar is
Can you guys hear me
breaking
now?
up there.
Do you have any information on the heating system for the sidewalk? I'm just interested if there's any specs or anything.
It's electric. There are sensors. There's 2 sensors in the platform. The sensors turn on when the temperature is, I think, 35 degrees, and there's moisture present. And it stays on until everything dries. With the heating in the pavement, once the event is over, it dries up pretty quickly once everything's melted. And I don't know what else to say about that. The platform and the ramps leading to it until you get to the normal elevation sidewalk are heated.
I have a
We
question about the
sign up for public comment. So I want to take that. Leslie
Could we
Shad,
talk about
do you have
the pylon sign? Is that conflict with our sign ordinance at all, with the messaging and the size of the pylon, the pulse sign?
Now, the sign ordinance speaks to signs on private property. So this would be something that would have to be discussed and approved by Public Works.
It is rather large.
I suspect Leslie Shad might have something to offer in comments for that. Leslie, are you
On
here?
this line in particular? Well,
you had public comments, right?
Yes, I do. I'm here on behalf of Bird Friendly Evanston, as Johanna knows, sorry. But I generally am also on the board of Citizen Screener Evanston, and from a community and a climate perspective, we're very glad to see this all happening. So, and glad that there are shelters to encourage public transportation use. I do want to mention on behalf of Bird Friendly, though, that, PACE, I don't know whether you've considered bird friendly issues in the past, but because it's a low, mostly transparent area, structure, there are more likely bird deaths, especially if it abuts landscaping or reflects landscaping, or landscaping is visible through it, either whether it's PACE landscaping or a neighboring property landscaping. And the effect of these bus shelters is in other cities, there have been quite a few that have done some treatment of these bus shelters, because the cumulative impact on bird deaths can be significant, especially in a migratory area like ours. There are many other cities that are implementing this. I sent along an attachment of that. And for the shelter to be effective in terms of avoiding bird-friendly deaths, the design should be on the outside of the glass generally. I mean, there can be birds that get inside that get stuck in the glass, but generally they would be hitting from the outside where there's foliage. And I'm not sure the etching, the Morton Grove etching you showed, whether that would be effective as a bird-friendly treatment. But I just want to point out that any amelioration of the shelters is relatively easy because they're low shelters and very accessible. Anyway, I just hope you'll consider it at least, and either on these two or on future ones. So that's it for Leslie Shad. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, Leslie. Anyone else? Public comments? Show of hands. Comment in the chat. Other staff questions? I don't think this isn't recommending to an additional body, right, Jessica? This is just for feedback.
That's right. This is not a recommendation for an additional body. This is for feedback. I would like to address the pylon. I did reach out to Public Works when I got the first drawings and also Gary, about the pylon and the vertical marker, to ask for feedback. It was direction from Rajiv, and Laura was copied on that email, to bring this to Dapper for review and comment on the pylon. I will say that there is one standard design on all of the pulse lines for these vertical markers or pylons with the bus tracker information. And so it's an either we sign off on or have general agreement with the vertical marker, or we don't. And then there would be no vertical marker that would be included as part of the project. And that would mean there'd be no bus tracker information as well.
All right, any other comments or questions? All right, I don't know if we need a motion here. Do we do, I can't remember, do we do motions for concept reviews? We just talk about it, right?
I believe we just discuss it, but there's
Yeah,
no motion.
There's no motion.
Right.
Okay.
No
Great.
motion.
Fantastic. Okay, so any, I think, Pace, do you have what you need from city staff on this?
Yes, absolutely. And I just wanted to, again, say thank you for inviting us to give an update today. We really appreciate the city's partnership and coordination on the project. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Well, if there's no other discussion items or topics, we will, I will entertain a motion to adjourn, and we do not have another meeting until next year.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Happy holidays. Happy New Year, everybody.